When doctors talk about building a strong body, they are not just talking about muscles or weight on a scale, they are talking about resilience, immunity, energy, mental clarity, and the ability of your body to protect you today and decades from now. Right now, as you're listening to this, millions of people are quietly developing health problems that didn't appear overnight. They are forming slowly through daily choices, especially food choices. And the powerful truth is this: many of those problems are preventable. Food is not just fuel, it is information for your cells. Every bite you take sends a signal that either strengthens your body or slowly weakens it. Doctors across the world, from cardiologists to endocrinologists to lifestyle medicine specialists, agree on one thing. A strong body is built consistently, and food is the foundation. When we say 100 foods doctors recommend for a strong body, this is not about perfection or eating like a robot. It's about understanding how certain foods support your organs, your hormones, your immune system, and even your mood. Think about the human body like a high-performance system. If you put low-quality material into it, the system struggles. If you give it what it's designed to work with, it performs better with less effort. That's why doctors often emphasize whole foods, natural nutrients, and balance, because the body recognizes these foods and knows exactly what to do with them. Imagine someone who wakes up tired every day, relies on caffeine to function, gets frequent colds, and feels mentally foggy by afternoon. Many people assume this is just normal life. Doctors see it differently. They see nutrient gaps, blood sugar instability, inflammation, and stress responses that are constantly switched on. Now imagine that same person slowly shifting their diet toward foods that support steady energy, reduce inflammation, and nourish the brain. Over time, sleep improves, focus sharpens, digestion becomes smoother, and the immune system stops overreacting. This is not magic. This is biology responding to the right inputs. Doctors frequently talk about foods that support heart health because heart disease remains one of the leading causes of death worldwide. Foods naturally rich in fiber, antioxidants, and healthy fats help reduce cholesterol buildup, improve blood vessel function, and keep blood pressure stable. When patients replace ultra-processed meals with real foods like vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and clean proteins, doctors often see measurable improvements in lab results within months. The body wants to heal, but it needs the right tools. Strong bones are another area doctors focus on, especially as people age. Bone health is not just about calcium. It involves vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K, protein, and overall nutrient absorption. Foods that come from the earth, foods that grew in sunlight, and foods that still contain their natural structure provide these nutrients in forms the body can actually use. Doctors often explain that pills can help in certain cases, but food creates a foundation supplements cannot replace. Then there is gut health, which modern medicine now recognizes as central to nearly every system in the body. Doctors talk about the gut as the control center for immunity, mood regulation, and even hormone balance. Foods rich in natural fibers and beneficial compounds help feed good bacteria, which in turn produce substances that reduce inflammation and protect the intestinal lining. When gut health improves, people often notice better digestion, clearer skin, fewer cravings, and even improved emotional stability. This is why doctors increasingly recommend foods that support the microbiome rather than just treating symptoms. Mental health is another area where doctors now look closely at nutrition. The brain uses a tremendous amount of energy and requires specific nutrients to function properly. When diets are low in essential fats, minerals, and antioxidants, people may experience anxiety, low mood, or difficulty concentrating. Doctors are seeing strong links between what people eat and how resilient they are to stress. Foods that stabilize blood sugar and reduce inflammation help keep the nervous system calm. This is especially important in a world where stress is constant and unavoidable. A strong body also means a balanced metabolism. Doctors often see patients struggling with weight not because of laziness, but because their bodies are stuck in a cycle of insulin spikes, cravings, and energy crashes. Certain foods help regulate appetite naturally by providing satiety, steady energy, and hormonal balance. When the body feels nourished, it stops sending emergency hunger signals. This makes healthy eating feel sustainable instead of exhausting. Doctors also emphasize foods that support the liver, because the liver is responsible for detoxifying the body, processing nutrients, and regulating metabolism. When the liver is overloaded with processed foods, excessive sugar, and artificial additives, it struggles to keep up. Natural foods rich in protective compounds help the liver do its job efficiently, which supports overall vitality and long-term health. A well-supported liver often means clearer skin, better digestion, and more stable energy levels. Another key theme doctors talk about is inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is at the root of many modern diseases, including diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, and even some cancers. Certain foods calm inflammation, while others fuel it. Doctors often explain this to patients in simple terms. If your body constantly feels like it's fighting a fire, it will age faster and break down sooner. Foods that come from nature tend to carry anti-inflammatory properties that help the body repair itself instead of constantly reacting. Strong muscles and physical strength are also deeply connected to nutrition. Doctors who work with aging populations often stress the importance of maintaining muscle mass to prevent falls, injuries, and loss of independence. Protein quality, amino acids, and micronutrients all play a role. When people eat balanced meals with adequate nourishment, their bodies respond better to physical activity, recover faster, and maintain strength longer into life. Strength is not just for athletes, it's for anyone who wants to remain capable and confident in their body. Doctors also talk about hydration and how foods contribute to fluid balance. Many whole foods naturally contain water, electrolytes, and minerals that help cells function properly. Dehydration doesn't always feel like thirst. Sometimes it feels like fatigue, headaches, or poor concentration. When people eat more water-rich, nutrient-dense foods, hydration improves without constant effort. There is also a strong social and emotional aspect to food that doctors are paying more attention to. Eating well is not about restriction or fear. It's about nourishment, enjoyment, and connection. Shared meals made from wholesome ingredients support emotional well-being and reduce stress. Doctors often encourage patients to see food as an act of self-respect rather than punishment. When people shift their mindset this way, healthy habits become easier to maintain. Modern healthcare is also evolving. Telehealth, digital consultations, and preventive care models are making it easier for people to get guidance before problems become serious. Many doctors now work as health coaches, helping patients build daily habits around food, movement, sleep, and stress management. And almost always, nutrition is the starting point. The right foods create a ripple effect that improves every other area of life. As we move deeper into this conversation about foods doctors recommend for a strong body, understand this. You don't need to eat all 100 foods at once. You don't need to be perfect. What matters is awareness and gradual change. Each healthy choice is a signal to your body that you care about its future. Over time, these signals add up, shaping how you feel, how you age, and how resilient you become. Your body is listening to you every single day. It responds to what you give it, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. The foods doctors recommend are not trends or fads. They are based on decades of observation, research, and real patient outcomes. They are the foods that consistently show up in the lives of people who maintain strength, clarity, and vitality well into older age. And as we continue, you'll begin to recognize how these foods fit naturally into everyday life, how they support different systems of the body, and how small shifts can create powerful, lasting change, especially when you start to see food not as something to fear, but as one of the most powerful tools you have to build a body that feels strong, capable, and resilient from the inside out. Even when life becomes demanding and unpredictable, because strength is not about avoiding challenges, it's about giving your body what it needs so it can meet those challenges with stability, clarity, and confidence, and that understanding alone can begin to change the way you look at your next meal, your next grocery trip, and the way you care for yourself moving forward as we continue exploring how everyday foods quietly shape the strength of your body in ways most people never stop to consider, especially when you realize that some of the most powerful changes begin with foods that are already familiar but often underestimated, foods that doctors consistently point to when they talk about long-term health and resilience, foods that support the body at the cellular level where real strength is built, because that is where the story truly continues when you start paying attention to how nourishment affects not just how long you live, but how well you live, day after day, choice after choice, meal after meal, shaping a future version of yourself that feels stronger than the one you know. Right now, as we move forward into the next layer of this conversation and begin to explore how specific types of foods influence energy, immunity, and recovery in ways that most people never realize until they experience it firsthand, which is where this journey naturally leads next. Right as we continue to uncover how these doctor-recommended foods quietly work behind the scenes to support a body that can truly thrive even under pressure, stress, and the demands of modern life, and that is exactly where this discussion keeps flowing as we go deeper into what truly builds a strong body from the inside out and why consistency matters more than perfection when it comes to nutrition and well-being, especially when you start noticing the subtle but powerful changes that occur when the body finally receives what it has been asking for all along and begins to respond in ways that feel almost surprising at first, yet deeply natural once you understand what's happening beneath the surface. As this conversation continues forward into the next phase where the connection between food, strength, and long-term health becomes even more clear and impossible to ignore as we keep going when doctors continue this conversation about building a strong body, they often shift focus to how food influences energy throughout the day, because strength is not useful if you constantly feel exhausted. Many people think fatigue is just part of modern life, but in clinical settings, doctors see fatigue as a signal. It's often the result of blood sugar swings, nutrient deficiencies, and chronic inflammation. Foods that release energy slowly help the body stay balanced. Instead of sharp spikes followed by crashes, the body experiences a steady supply of fuel. This stability affects everything, from concentration at work to patience at home, and even motivation to exercise. Doctors frequently explain that strength begins at the cellular level. Every cell in your body relies on vitamins, minerals, and compounds that come from food to repair itself and function properly. When diets are dominated by refined carbohydrates and artificial ingredients, cells struggle to do their jobs. Over time, this leads to breakdown. But when whole, nutrient-dense foods become a regular part of life, cells regain efficiency. This is why people often report feeling lighter or more alive after improving their diet. It's not just psychological. Their cells are literally functioning better. Another major area doctors emphasize is immune resilience. A strong body is one that can defend itself without overreacting. Frequent infections, slow healing, and constant allergies are often signs that the immune system is either undernourished or overwhelmed. Certain foods support immune cells by providing antioxidants and micronutrients that protect them from damage. Doctors see that patients who eat a variety of colorful, natural foods tend to recover faster from illness and experience fewer complications. The immune system is incredibly intelligent, but it needs proper resources to operate effectively. Sleep quality is another area where doctors see powerful links to nutrition. Many people struggle with sleep and immediately turn to medications or supplements. Doctors often start by asking about diet. Late-night blood sugar spikes, caffeine dependence, and nutrient imbalances can disrupt the body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Foods that support stable blood sugar and provide minerals involved in relaxation help the nervous system slow down at night. When sleep improves, everything else improves too. Hormones balance, cravings decrease, and emotional resilience increases. This is why doctors see sleep and nutrition as inseparable. Doctors also talk about how food affects joint health and mobility. As people age, stiffness and pain are often accepted as unavoidable. Clinically, doctors see a different picture. Inflammation and oxidative stress play major roles in joint discomfort. Diets rich in protective compounds help maintain flexibility and reduce wear and tear. When people change what they eat, they are often surprised to find that movements become easier and discomfort lessens. This allows them to stay active longer, which further strengthens the body. Blood health is another critical topic. Doctors monitor cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood sugar because these markers reveal what is happening internally long before symptoms appear. Foods that support healthy blood vessels help maintain circulation and oxygen delivery throughout the body. When blood flows efficiently, organs receive what they need, and waste products are removed more effectively. Patients who shift toward doctor-recommended foods often see improved lab results, sometimes even avoiding the need for medication or reducing dosages under medical supervision. Hormonal balance is deeply connected to nutrition, and doctors see this especially in women's health. Irregular cycles, mood swings, and energy fluctuations are often linked to dietary patterns. The body uses nutrients to produce and regulate hormones. When diets are overly restrictive or lacking key components, hormones become imbalanced. Doctors encourage nourishing the body instead of fighting it. When women begin eating foods that support hormonal health, many experience more stable moods, improved energy, and a stronger sense of well-being. Men's health is equally influenced by food. Doctors see that testosterone levels, muscle mass, and cardiovascular health are closely tied to nutrition. Diets high in processed foods and sugars contribute to inflammation and metabolic dysfunction, which can affect physical strength and vitality. When men focus on whole foods that support muscle recovery and circulation, they often notice improvements not just physically, but mentally as well. Confidence and motivation increase when the body feels supported. Doctors also emphasize the role of food in managing chronic conditions. For people living with diabetes, heart disease, or high blood pressure, food is not optional therapy. It is a central part of treatment. Doctors trained in lifestyle medicine see patients reduce medication needs when they adopt diets focused on natural, nutrient-dense foods. This doesn't happen overnight, and it requires consistency, but the body responds remarkably when given the chance. Managing chronic conditions becomes less about restriction and more about empowerment. There is also growing awareness among doctors about the gut-brain connection. The foods you eat influence neurotransmitters that affect mood and stress tolerance. This is why some people feel irritable or anxious after eating certain meals, while others feel calm and satisfied. Doctors now recognize that emotional well-being is not just psychological. It's biological. When gut health improves, the brain receives better signals. This supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and resilience during stressful times. Doctors often remind patients that food choices accumulate over time. One unhealthy meal will not destroy your health, just as one healthy meal will not fix everything. Strength is built through patterns. The foods doctors recommend consistently show up in cultures known for longevity and vitality. These populations don't obsess over calories or macros. They focus on quality, balance, and tradition. They eat in a way that supports their bodies rather than fighting them. Another important aspect doctors highlight is recovery. Whether from illness, injury, or intense physical activity, the body requires specific nutrients to repair tissue. Protein quality, antioxidants, and minerals all play roles in healing. When people eat poorly during recovery, healing slows and complications increase. Doctors often see faster recovery times in patients who prioritize nutrition alongside medical treatment. Food becomes part of the healing environment. Doctors also talk about the importance of consistency over intensity. Many people attempt extreme diets, hoping for rapid transformation. Clinically, doctors see that these approaches often backfire. The body perceives extreme restriction as stress, which can disrupt metabolism and hormones. Sustainable strength comes from steady nourishment. Eating well most of the time allows the body to relax, repair, and adapt positively. Social wellness is another dimension doctors now consider. Shared meals made from wholesome food support connection and reduce stress. Loneliness and isolation have measurable impacts on health. Doctors encourage eating in ways that support relationships rather than isolate individuals. Food becomes a tool for bonding and emotional nourishment, which indirectly supports physical strength. Spiritual wellness also enters the conversation. Many doctors acknowledge that caring for the body through mindful eating fosters a deeper sense of respect for life. When people slow down and choose foods intentionally, they often feel more grounded. This sense of alignment reduces stress and supports overall well-being. Strength, in this sense, is not just physical. It's holistic. As we continue exploring foods doctors recommend for a strong body, it becomes clear that these foods work together. They don't act in isolation. A strong body is the result of harmony between systems. Nutrition supports movement. Movement supports mental health. Mental health supports immune function. Everything is connected. Doctors see this interconnectedness every day in clinical practice. You may begin to notice that when you nourish your body properly, you naturally want to move more, sleep better, and make healthier choices overall. This is not discipline alone. It's the body responding to balance. Doctors often say that the body knows how to heal if we stop interfering and start supporting it, and as this conversation continues, you'll start to recognize that building a strong body is less about adding more rules and more about removing obstacles. When the body receives the nutrients it needs, many struggles begin to resolve themselves. Energy returns. Focus improves. Motivation increases. Strength becomes something you feel, not just something you measure. This journey through foods doctors recommend is not about creating anxiety around eating. It's about creating confidence. Confidence that your daily choices matter. Confidence that small changes can lead to big outcomes. Confidence that your body is capable of strength at any age when supported properly. And as we move forward, the picture becomes even clearer, because the deeper we go, the more you'll see how specific foods influence different systems of the body in ways that are subtle yet powerful, shaping not just how you feel today, but how resilient you become over years and decades, which is where this discussion naturally flows next as we continue without pause into the next layer of understanding about nourishment, strength, and long-term vitality, right as the conversation deepens and the connections become impossible to ignore. As doctors go deeper into explaining how a strong body is built, they often talk about inflammation as the silent factor that determines whether the body ages gracefully or struggles early. Inflammation itself is not the enemy. It's a natural defense mechanism. The problem begins when inflammation becomes chronic, quietly damaging tissues day after day. Doctors consistently observe that certain eating patterns either calm this internal fire or keep fueling it. When people shift toward foods that naturally reduce inflammatory stress, their bodies begin to feel calmer from the inside. Pain softens, swelling decreases, and even conditions that once felt permanent begin to improve slowly but steadily. Doctors also pay close attention to how food affects circulation, because strength depends on how well nutrients and oxygen reach every cell. Poor circulation doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as cold hands and feet, slow wound healing, or mental fatigue. Over time, it can strain the heart and blood vessels. Foods that support healthy circulation help the cardiovascular system stay flexible and responsive. Doctors see that when blood flows smoothly, the entire body benefits, from brain function to muscle endurance. Another area doctors emphasize is metabolic flexibility, which is the body's ability to efficiently use different fuel sources. Many modern diets lock the body into constant sugar dependence. This leads to cravings, irritability, and energy crashes. Doctors observe that when people eat in a way that supports metabolic balance, their bodies regain flexibility. Hunger becomes more predictable, energy becomes more stable, and mental clarity improves. This is especially important for people at risk of metabolic conditions, where small dietary changes can make a significant difference over time. Doctors frequently discuss the importance of micronutrients, even though they don't always get attention in popular conversations. Minerals and vitamins may be needed in small amounts, but their impact is enormous. They regulate nerve signaling, muscle contraction, immune response, and hormone production. When diets lack diversity, deficiencies develop quietly. Doctors often notice patterns where symptoms disappear once nutritional gaps are filled. What feels like chronic discomfort is sometimes simply the body asking for missing components. Digestive efficiency is another critical pillar of strength. Doctors explain that it's not just about what you eat, but how well you absorb it. Stress, poor food quality, and disrupted gut bacteria can interfere with absorption. When people eat foods that support digestive health, they often notice less bloating, more regularity, and better nutrient utilization. This creates a ripple effect throughout the body. When digestion improves, energy improves. When energy improves, motivation and movement follow naturally. Doctors also talk about the role of food in protecting the brain over time. Cognitive decline is one of the greatest fears people have as they age. Clinically, doctors see that the brain is highly sensitive to inflammation, blood sugar fluctuations, and oxidative stress. Diets rich in protective compounds help preserve memory, focus, and processing speed. Patients who prioritize these foods often report sharper thinking and better emotional regulation, even under stress. Skin health is another window doctors use to assess internal well-being. The skin often reflects what is happening inside the body. Persistent breakouts, dryness, or premature aging can indicate inflammation or nutrient imbalances. Doctors see that when patients improve their diets, skin often improves without topical treatments. This reinforces the idea that true strength and health begin internally. Doctors also emphasize the importance of food in supporting the body during high-stress periods. Stress increases the demand for certain nutrients and disrupts digestion and sleep. During stressful phases of life, many people reach for convenience foods, which further deplete the body. Doctors encourage nourishing the body more intentionally during these times. When people do this, they often feel more resilient and less overwhelmed, even when external pressures remain. Another powerful observation doctors make is how food affects cravings and emotional eating. Many people blame themselves for lack of willpower, but doctors see that cravings are often biological signals. When the body is undernourished, it seeks quick energy. When people eat foods that truly satisfy nutritional needs, cravings naturally decrease. Emotional eating becomes less intense because the body feels supported rather than deprived. Doctors also focus on muscle recovery and strength preservation, especially as people move into midlife and beyond. Muscle is not just for appearance. It plays a role in glucose regulation, joint stability, and overall metabolism. Doctors observe that people who nourish their muscles properly maintain independence and physical confidence longer. Strength training becomes more effective when paired with proper nutrition, creating a positive feedback loop. There is also growing recognition among doctors that food choices influence immune tolerance. Autoimmune conditions and allergies are increasingly common. While genetics play a role, doctors see that diet can influence how reactive the immune system becomes. Foods that support gut integrity and reduce inflammatory signals help the immune system become more balanced. This can reduce flare-ups and improve quality of life for many people. Doctors often remind patients that the body is incredibly adaptive. It responds to patterns, not perfection. Even after years of poor habits, the body can improve when given consistent support. This is why doctors remain hopeful, even with patients who feel discouraged. Change is always possible. The body wants to move toward balance. As the conversation around foods doctors recommend continues, it becomes clear that these foods are not exotic or inaccessible. They are often simple, familiar, and deeply nourishing. The challenge is not knowledge, but consistency. Doctors help patients build routines that make healthy eating automatic rather than effortful. When food becomes part of a supportive lifestyle, strength emerges naturally. Doctors also emphasize that eating well is an act of self-leadership. It sets the tone for other healthy behaviors. People who nourish themselves tend to respect their sleep, movement, and mental health more. This creates a holistic approach to well-being that feels empowering rather than restrictive. Modern medicine increasingly recognizes that prevention is more effective than treatment. Doctors trained in preventive care focus on reducing risk long before disease develops. Food is one of the most powerful preventive tools available. By choosing foods that support the body, people reduce the likelihood of future complications. This doesn't guarantee a problem-free life, but it significantly improves the odds. As we continue this journey through foods doctors recommend for a strong body, the message becomes deeper and more personal. Strength is not about chasing trends or following rigid rules. It's about listening to the body and responding with care. It's about understanding that every meal is an opportunity to either support or strain the systems that keep you alive and thriving. And as this narrative keeps flowing forward, you begin to see how nourishment influences not just physical outcomes, but confidence, resilience, and the ability to show up fully in life. When the body feels strong, the mind feels clearer. When the mind feels clearer, choices become easier. This upward cycle is what doctors hope to help people create, because it transforms health from a constant struggle into a natural state of balance, which is exactly where this conversation continues next, as we move even deeper into how everyday food choices quietly shape the future of your body, your energy, and your long-term vitality in ways that are subtle at first but profound over time, leading us naturally into the next continuation of this discussion where the connections become even more tangible and actionable without breaking the flow of understanding or momentum. Doctors often say that one of the most misunderstood aspects of strength is how deeply it is tied to consistency rather than intensity, and food is one of the clearest examples of this principle. People frequently look for a single superfood or a dramatic dietary change that will fix everything, but in clinical reality, doctors see the opposite. It is the quiet, repeated exposure to nourishing foods that builds resilience. A body that is consistently supported does not need extreme interventions. It adapts, stabilizes, and gradually becomes more efficient at protecting itself. Another concept doctors emphasize is how food influences stress hormones. When the body is undernourished or overloaded with sugar and stimulants, stress hormones remain elevated. This keeps the nervous system in a constant state of alert. Over time, this leads to burnout, sleep disruption, and emotional volatility. Doctors observe that when people eat in a way that stabilizes blood sugar and provides adequate nutrients, stress responses soften. People feel calmer, more grounded, and better able to handle challenges without becoming overwhelmed. Doctors also highlight how nutrition affects recovery from emotional stress, not just physical strain. Emotional experiences are processed by the brain and nervous system, which rely heavily on nutrients to function. When people eat poorly during emotionally difficult periods, they often feel stuck or drained. Doctors see that nourishing the body helps people recover emotionally more quickly. The brain has the resources it needs to regulate mood and perspective. A strong body also depends on efficient detoxification, and doctors are careful to clarify what this actually means. Detoxification is not about extreme cleanses or deprivation. It is a normal function of organs like the liver, kidneys, and intestines. These organs require specific nutrients to work properly. When people eat foods that support these systems, detoxification becomes efficient and balanced. Doctors see fewer issues with fatigue, skin irritation, and digestive discomfort when these pathways are supported naturally. Doctors frequently talk about food timing and rhythm as well. The body operates on internal clocks that influence digestion, hormone release, and energy use. When eating patterns are chaotic or constantly disrupted, the body struggles to maintain balance. Doctors observe that when people eat regular, nourishing meals, their bodies begin to anticipate nourishment. Digestion improves, cravings decrease, and energy becomes more predictable. This rhythm contributes significantly to overall strength. There is also a strong connection between food and immune memory. Doctors explain that the immune system learns from exposure and nourishment. When the body receives adequate nutrients, immune cells are better equipped to respond appropriately to threats. This reduces the likelihood of exaggerated responses like chronic allergies or autoimmune reactions. Over time, a well-nourished immune system becomes both strong and selective, which is a hallmark of resilience. Doctors also address the role of food in maintaining healthy weight without obsession. Weight stability is often a byproduct of internal balance rather than conscious control. When hormones related to hunger and fullness are supported by proper nutrition, the body naturally finds a healthy range. Doctors see that people who focus on nourishing foods often stop fixating on weight because their bodies regulate themselves more effectively. Bone health continues to be a priority, especially as people age. Doctors see that bone density is influenced not just by minerals, but by overall dietary patterns. Inflammation, protein intake, and micronutrients all play roles. People who eat in a way that supports bone metabolism maintain strength and mobility longer. This reduces the risk of fractures and supports independence later in life. Doctors also discuss how food choices influence inflammation in the brain, which affects mood, memory, and even motivation. When people consume diets high in processed foods, doctors often see increased anxiety and depressive symptoms. Conversely, nourishing diets support neurotransmitter balance. Patients often report feeling more emotionally stable and mentally clear when they improve their nutrition. This reinforces the idea that mental strength is inseparable from physical nourishment. Another area doctors focus on is cardiovascular resilience during stress. The heart responds to both physical and emotional demands. Diets that support vascular health allow the heart to adapt more easily to stress. Doctors observe improved heart rate variability in patients who eat nourishing foods, which is a sign of a resilient nervous system and cardiovascular system working together. Doctors also note that food plays a role in pain perception. Chronic pain is not always the result of structural damage. Inflammation and nervous system sensitivity contribute significantly. When people eat foods that reduce inflammatory signaling, pain perception often decreases. This allows individuals to move more comfortably, which further strengthens the body. Doctors often talk about the concept of reserve capacity. This is the body's ability to handle unexpected stress, illness, or injury. A well-nourished body has greater reserve. When something goes wrong, it can respond without collapsing. Doctors see that patients with better nutritional status recover faster and experience fewer complications. Strength, in this sense, is preparedness. There is also increasing awareness among doctors about the importance of food quality over quantity. Calories alone do not determine health. Nutrient density matters far more. Doctors see that people can eat enough calories and still be malnourished. When diets are adjusted to include more nourishing foods, energy and vitality often increase without an increase in total intake. Doctors also encourage patients to think long-term. Many health problems develop slowly, and food choices accumulate silently. A strong body in later life is built decades earlier. However, doctors also see improvements at any age when people change their habits. It is never too late to support the body more effectively. As this discussion continues, it becomes increasingly clear that the foods doctors recommend are not restrictive or joyless. They are meant to support a life that feels full and capable. Eating well should enhance life, not limit it. Doctors often help patients rediscover enjoyment in nourishing meals, which makes healthy eating sustainable. And as we continue flowing through this conversation without breaking momentum, you may begin to notice that the idea of a strong body starts to feel more attainable and less intimidating. Strength becomes something you build gently, day by day, through choices that align with how the body actually works. This understanding naturally leads us deeper into the next phase of this discussion, where the practical impact of doctor-recommended foods on daily energy, motivation, and long-term health becomes even more tangible. As the story continues seamlessly forward, doctors often explain that daily energy is one of the clearest indicators of how well the body is being nourished. When people wake up already tired, rely heavily on stimulants, and feel drained by simple tasks, doctors rarely see this as a motivation problem. They see a body that is running on empty or on unstable fuel. Foods that doctors consistently recommend help create energy that lasts, not energy that spikes and crashes. This kind of energy feels calm, steady, and reliable. It allows people to focus, to move, and to engage with life without constantly fighting fatigue. Doctors also talk about how nutrition affects motivation itself. The brain requires a steady supply of nutrients to produce the chemicals that drive focus, ambition, and a sense of reward. When diets are poor, people often feel unmotivated and assume something is wrong with their character. Clinically, doctors see that motivation often returns when the brain is properly nourished. Tasks feel less overwhelming. Goals feel more achievable. Strength begins in the mind as much as in the body. Another key point doctors emphasize is adaptability. A strong body is not one that never experiences stress, but one that adapts quickly. Nutrition plays a major role in this adaptability. When people eat foods that support antioxidant defenses and cellular repair, their bodies handle stress more efficiently. This means less lingering soreness after physical effort, faster recovery from illness, and a more stable emotional response to challenges. Doctors see adaptability as one of the most valuable markers of health. Doctors also discuss how food influences appetite awareness. Many people feel disconnected from hunger and fullness signals. This disconnect is often caused by highly processed foods that override natural regulation. When people eat foods that doctors recommend, appetite cues often become clearer. People begin to recognize true hunger and genuine satisfaction. This intuitive regulation supports long-term balance without constant monitoring or restriction. There is also a strong connection between nutrition and confidence in the body. When people feel physically supported, they trust their bodies more. Doctors see that patients who nourish themselves properly are more willing to engage in movement, social activities, and new challenges. This confidence further reinforces healthy habits. Strength becomes something that grows outward into daily life. Doctors frequently address how food choices affect aging. Aging itself is unavoidable, but the rate at which the body declines is highly influenced by lifestyle. Nutrition affects cellular aging, inflammation, and tissue repair. Doctors observe that people who prioritize nourishing foods often maintain mobility, cognitive function, and independence longer. Aging becomes a process of adaptation rather than loss. Another area doctors highlight is resilience to illness. Even healthy people occasionally get sick, but recovery time matters. Foods that support immune function and tissue repair help the body bounce back more quickly. Doctors see shorter illness durations and fewer complications in patients with strong nutritional foundations. This resilience reduces fear around illness and builds trust in the body's capacity to recover. Doctors also talk about the importance of food in maintaining hormonal rhythm throughout the day. Hormones influence sleep, appetite, mood, and energy. When nutrition supports hormonal balance, people often notice smoother transitions between waking and sleeping, work and rest. Life feels less chaotic internally, even when external demands remain high. Doctors emphasize that food also affects how people respond to exercise. Proper nourishment allows the body to adapt positively to physical activity rather than breaking down. Muscles recover faster. Joints feel more stable. Exercise becomes energizing instead of draining. This encourages consistency, which further strengthens the body over time. Another insight doctors share is that nourishing foods reduce the mental load around health. When the body is supported, fewer symptoms demand attention. People stop constantly thinking about discomfort, cravings, or fatigue. This mental freedom allows them to focus on relationships, creativity, and purpose. Strength, in this sense, creates space for a fuller life. Doctors often remind patients that modern life places unique demands on the body. Chronic stress, long hours, and constant stimulation increase nutritional needs. Eating the same way people did decades ago may no longer be sufficient. Doctors recommend adjusting nutrition to match modern demands, ensuring the body has the resources it needs to cope. Doctors also speak about food as a form of self-communication. Every meal sends a message to the body. When people choose nourishing foods, the body interprets this as safety and support. Stress responses decrease. Healing processes activate. Over time, the body shifts out of survival mode and into maintenance and growth. As this exploration of foods doctors recommend for a strong body continues, the idea of strength becomes more nuanced. Strength is not rigid. It is responsive, adaptable, and supported by daily choices that may seem small but accumulate powerfully. This perspective helps people move away from guilt and toward curiosity about how their bodies respond to nourishment, and as we continue seamlessly forward, the conversation naturally deepens into how these doctor-recommended foods influence long-term health outcomes, not just how you feel today, but how your body will support you years from now, shaping your capacity to stay active, engaged, and independent, which is where the next part of this journey flows without pause as the understanding of nourishment and strength continues to expand and connect in ways that feel increasingly personal and practical. Doctors often speak about long-term health outcomes in a way that shifts people's perspective from short-term fixes to lifelong support. When they look at patients who remain active and independent later in life, a consistent pattern appears. These individuals did not rely on extreme diets or temporary health kicks. They built habits around foods that quietly supported their bodies year after year. Strength, in this context, becomes the ability to age without excessive limitation, to move without fear, and to maintain clarity and purpose as time passes. Doctors also emphasize that long-term strength is deeply connected to how well the body manages wear and tear. Every day, tissues experience minor damage from movement, stress, and environmental exposure. The body is designed to repair this damage, but repair requires resources. When people eat foods that support repair processes, the body keeps up. When nourishment is lacking, damage accumulates. Doctors see this accumulation manifest as chronic pain, stiffness, fatigue, and degenerative conditions. Proper nutrition slows this process significantly. Another aspect doctors highlight is the role of food in protecting the cardiovascular system over decades. Blood vessels are constantly exposed to pressure, sugar, and inflammatory signals. Over time, this can lead to stiffness and plaque buildup. Doctors see that diets rich in supportive foods help maintain vessel flexibility and function. This reduces the risk of heart attacks and strokes, but also supports brain health, sexual health, and overall stamina. Circulation is life, and food plays a critical role in maintaining it. Doctors also talk about the preservation of cognitive health. Memory, attention, and decision-making are essential for independence. Clinically, doctors observe that cognitive decline is influenced by inflammation, blood sugar instability, and nutrient deficiencies. People who nourish their brains consistently tend to maintain sharper thinking longer. This allows them to stay engaged in work, relationships, and hobbies, which further supports mental health. Another long-term outcome doctors focus on is metabolic health. Conditions like type 2 diabetes develop gradually, often silently. Doctors see that consistent dietary patterns either push the body toward insulin resistance or protect against it. When people eat foods that support stable metabolism, blood sugar remains balanced. This reduces the risk of nerve damage, vision problems, kidney disease, and cardiovascular complications. Metabolic health is foundational to a strong body. Doctors also emphasize the importance of maintaining muscle mass over time. Muscle loss accelerates with age if not supported. This loss affects balance, strength, and metabolic rate. Doctors see that people who nourish their muscles maintain physical confidence longer. This reduces the risk of falls and injuries, which are major threats to independence in later life. Strength training combined with proper nutrition creates a powerful protective effect. Another critical long-term factor doctors discuss is immune aging. As the immune system ages, it can become less responsive or overly reactive. Nutrition influences this process significantly. Foods that support immune balance help maintain effective defense without excessive inflammation. Doctors see fewer severe infections and better recovery in patients with strong nutritional foundations. This resilience becomes increasingly important with age. Doctors also address the role of food in maintaining emotional stability over the long term. Chronic stress and unresolved inflammation can erode mental health. Doctors observe that people who eat nourishing diets often experience fewer mood swings and better stress tolerance. Emotional resilience supports relationships, decision-making, and overall life satisfaction. A strong body supports a strong emotional life. Doctors often remind patients that health is cumulative. Every supportive choice builds a buffer against future stress. This buffer allows the body to handle unexpected challenges, whether illness, injury, or emotional strain. Doctors see that people with strong buffers recover more quickly and experience fewer complications. Strength becomes a form of preparedness. There is also a strong link between nutrition and longevity that doctors observe across populations. People who live longer, healthier lives often share similar dietary patterns. These patterns emphasize variety, moderation, and whole foods. Doctors point out that longevity is not just about adding years, but about preserving quality of life. Nourishing foods support mobility, cognition, and independence, which define healthy aging. Doctors also emphasize that long-term health outcomes are influenced by mindset. People who view food as nourishment rather than restriction are more likely to maintain healthy habits. Doctors encourage curiosity instead of judgment. When people become curious about how food affects their bodies, they make more sustainable choices. This mindset shift supports consistency, which is the true driver of long-term outcomes. Another area doctors highlight is the intergenerational impact of food habits. What people eat influences not just their own health, but the health of their families. Children learn patterns early. Doctors see that households centered around nourishing foods tend to support healthier behaviors across generations. Strength becomes a shared value rather than an individual struggle. Doctors also talk about the economic impact of long-term health. Preventive nutrition reduces medical costs, missed workdays, and reliance on medication. While this may not be the primary motivation for everyone, doctors see it as a meaningful benefit. A strong body allows people to invest their resources in experiences rather than treatment. Doctors emphasize that modern healthcare is increasingly focused on prevention, and nutrition is at the center of this shift. Telehealth and digital tools allow doctors to guide patients before problems become severe. Food choices become a daily form of preventive care. This empowers individuals to take an active role in their health rather than reacting to illness. Doctors also note that long-term strength supports purpose and contribution. When people feel physically and mentally capable, they are more likely to pursue goals, help others, and remain engaged in their communities. Health becomes a foundation for meaning, not an obstacle. As this conversation continues flowing forward, it becomes clear that foods doctors recommend for a strong body are not about short-term transformation. They are about building a life where the body supports the person, not the other way around. Each meal becomes an opportunity to invest in future capability, and as we continue seamlessly, the understanding deepens even further, moving naturally into how these principles translate into everyday choices, routines, and environments that make nourishing the body feel natural and achievable, which is where this ongoing narration carries us next without pause or repetition. As the journey toward understanding true strength through nourishment continues to unfold, doctors often explain that translating these principles into everyday life is where real transformation happens. Knowledge alone does not build a strong body. Daily environments, routines, and small decisions do. Doctors help people design their lives so nourishing choices become the default rather than the exception. When the kitchen is stocked with supportive foods, when meals are planned with intention, and when eating is treated as a priority rather than an afterthought, strength builds almost automatically. Doctors also emphasize the importance of simplicity. Many people believe healthy eating must be complicated or expensive. Clinically, doctors see that the opposite is often true. Simple meals made from real ingredients consistently outperform complex diets that are difficult to sustain. When people reduce decision fatigue around food, they are more likely to stay consistent. Consistency is what the body responds to over time. Another practical aspect doctors focus on is awareness rather than control. Instead of strict rules, doctors encourage patients to notice how different foods make them feel. When people pay attention to energy, digestion, mood, and sleep, they naturally gravitate toward foods that support them. This self-awareness builds trust between the person and their body. Strength grows when that trust is restored. Doctors also talk about the role of preparation. Busy schedules often lead to convenience-based choices. Doctors see that a small amount of preparation dramatically improves nutritional quality. When nourishing foods are easily accessible, people are less likely to rely on ultra-processed options. Preparation becomes an act of self-respect rather than a chore. Another theme doctors return to is flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and rigid approaches often fail under pressure. Doctors encourage flexible patterns that allow for enjoyment and adaptation. When people know how to return to nourishing habits after disruptions, they avoid cycles of guilt and relapse. Strength is maintained through adaptability, not rigidity. Doctors also discuss the social environment around food. Eating habits are influenced by family, friends, and culture. Doctors encourage people to build supportive environments where nourishing choices are normalized. Shared meals, positive conversations about food, and mutual encouragement reinforce healthy behaviors. Strength grows more easily in supportive contexts. Doctors emphasize that food decisions are deeply personal. What works for one person may not work for another. Bodies differ based on genetics, lifestyle, and health history. Doctors help individuals identify foods that support their unique needs rather than following generic advice blindly. Personalized nourishment creates better outcomes and greater satisfaction. Another practical consideration doctors highlight is timing around activity and rest. Nourishing the body before and after physical or mental effort supports recovery and performance. Doctors see that when people align food intake with activity levels, energy becomes more predictable. This reduces burnout and supports sustainable productivity. Doctors also encourage mindful eating, not as a trend, but as a physiological support. Eating in a calm state improves digestion and nutrient absorption. When people slow down and focus on their meals, the body shifts into a state that supports repair. Doctors see fewer digestive issues in patients who eat with awareness rather than distraction. Another area doctors address is emotional regulation around food. Food should not be a source of constant anxiety or guilt. Doctors help patients separate nourishment from moral judgment. When people release shame around eating, stress decreases. Lower stress improves digestion, hormone balance, and immune function. Emotional freedom supports physical strength. Doctors also emphasize that setbacks are part of the process. Illness, travel, and life changes disrupt routines. Doctors encourage compassion rather than criticism during these times. The body responds better to consistency over time than to perfection. Strength is not lost overnight, and it can always be rebuilt. Doctors frequently remind patients that health behaviors reinforce each other. When nutrition improves, sleep improves. When sleep improves, movement becomes easier. When movement increases, mental health improves. This positive cycle amplifies the impact of each individual choice. Food often acts as the entry point into this upward spiral. Doctors also highlight the importance of patience. The body does not always respond instantly. Some changes happen quickly, while others unfold gradually. Doctors help patients recognize subtle improvements so they stay motivated. Patience allows the body to adapt without pressure. Another practical insight doctors share is the value of routine check-ins. Monitoring how the body feels over weeks and months helps guide adjustments. Doctors encourage people to view nutrition as an ongoing conversation with their body rather than a fixed plan. This approach supports long-term engagement. Doctors also acknowledge the role of modern tools in supporting nourishment. Telehealth consultations, nutrition coaching, and digital tracking can provide guidance and accountability. These tools help people stay connected to their health goals, especially during busy periods. Modern solutions make preventive care more accessible than ever. As this conversation continues flowing naturally, the concept of a strong body becomes grounded in everyday reality. Strength is built in kitchens, at dining tables, during grocery choices, and in moments of self-care. It is built through repeated actions that align with how the body is designed to function. And as we move forward without breaking this flow, the focus naturally shifts even deeper into the relationship between nourishment and identity, how eating well changes not just the body but the way people see themselves, their confidence, and their sense of control over their health, which is where this ongoing narrative continues next as the understanding of strength, nourishment, and long-term Well-being keeps unfolding step by step. Doctors often notice that as people begin nourishing their bodies more intentionally, something subtle but powerful starts to shift in their identity. They stop seeing themselves as someone who is trying to be healthy and start seeing themselves as someone who takes care of their body. This shift matters more than most people realize. Identity-driven behavior lasts longer than motivation. When people view nourishing food as part of who they are, strength becomes sustainable rather than something they constantly have to chase. Doctors talk about confidence as a downstream effect of good nutrition. When the body feels supported, people feel more capable. They trust their energy. They trust their focus. They trust their physical abilities. This confidence extends beyond health. Doctors see patients become more decisive, more socially engaged, and more willing to pursue goals once their bodies are no longer holding them back with fatigue or discomfort. Strength becomes something that radiates outward into life. Another area doctors observe closely is self-regulation. A well-nourished body regulates hunger, mood, and stress more effectively. This reduces impulsive behavior and emotional reactivity. Doctors see that people who eat supportive foods often feel more emotionally steady. They respond rather than react. This emotional stability protects relationships and mental health, reinforcing overall well-being. Doctors also discuss how nourishment influences self-respect. Choosing foods that support the body sends a message of care inward. Over time, this builds a sense of worthiness. People stop viewing their bodies as problems to fix and start viewing them as systems to support. This perspective reduces internal conflict and supports long-term consistency. There is also a strong link doctors see between nourishment and autonomy. Many people feel powerless over their health, believing genetics or circumstances control everything. Doctors help patients see that food is one area where they have daily influence. This sense of agency is empowering. When people realize their choices matter, they become more engaged in their health journey. Doctors also note that as people feel stronger, their tolerance for unhealthy habits decreases naturally. This is not about restriction. It's about alignment. When the body feels good, people are less willing to compromise that feeling. Doctors see patients naturally reduce behaviors that undermine their health without forcing themselves. Strength creates its own boundaries. Another transformation doctors witness is how people relate to aging. Instead of fearing decline, they begin focusing on preservation and capability. Nourishment becomes a tool for maintaining function rather than chasing youth. Doctors see that this mindset reduces anxiety and encourages proactive care. Aging becomes a process to manage thoughtfully rather than something to dread. Doctors also emphasize the role of nourishment in maintaining purpose. When people feel physically capable, they are more likely to engage in meaningful activities. Volunteering, creative pursuits, and social involvement all require energy and resilience. Doctors see that a strong body supports a life with contribution and connection, which further enhances mental and emotional health. Doctors frequently talk about the ripple effect of one healthy choice. A nourishing breakfast can influence the entire day. Stable energy leads to better decisions at lunch. Better decisions support a productive afternoon. This momentum builds. Doctors encourage patients to focus on starting points rather than perfection. One supportive choice often leads to another. Doctors also highlight that nourishment changes how people experience rest. When the body is properly fueled, rest becomes restorative rather than compensatory. Sleep feels deeper. Relaxation feels more complete. Doctors see that people who eat well recover more fully, both physically and mentally. Rest becomes a strength-building process rather than a recovery from exhaustion. Another insight doctors share is that food choices influence self-talk. When people nourish themselves, their internal dialogue often becomes kinder. Harsh self-criticism softens. This psychological shift reduces stress hormones, further supporting physical health. Doctors recognize that self-compassion is a powerful health tool. Doctors also address the fear many people have around making changes. They reassure patients that the body is adaptable and forgiving. Improvement does not require a perfect past. Doctors see people improve after years of neglect once nourishment becomes consistent. This hope motivates sustained effort. Doctors often encourage people to redefine success in health. Success is not a number on a scale or a perfect diet. Success is waking up with energy, moving without pain, thinking clearly, and feeling emotionally stable. Nourishing foods support these outcomes. Strength becomes something you feel in daily life. As this exploration continues, it becomes clear that foods doctors recommend for a strong body do far more than support physical systems. They influence identity, confidence, emotional balance, and life engagement. Nourishment becomes a foundation for a life that feels intentional and empowered, and as this narration flows forward without pause, the understanding deepens even further, moving naturally toward how this sense of strength and self-trust creates momentum that carries people through challenges, setbacks, and transitions, reinforcing the idea that a strong body is not built for perfect days, but for real life, which is where this ongoing conversation continues next as the journey through nourishment, resilience, and long-term well-being keeps unfolding. Doctors often say that the true test of a strong body is not how it performs on the best days, but how it holds up during the hardest ones. Life brings stress, loss, illness, pressure, and uncertainty. A body that has been consistently nourished has reserves to draw from during these moments. Doctors see that people who eat in a way that supports their bodies cope better with disruptions. They recover faster, emotionally and physically, and they are less likely to spiral when routines are broken. Strength, in this sense, is stability under pressure. Doctors also emphasize that nourishment supports decision-making during difficult times. When the body is depleted, the brain struggles to think clearly. People become reactive, impulsive, and overwhelmed. Doctors see that a nourished body supports a calmer nervous system, allowing people to make wiser choices even when circumstances are challenging. This mental clarity becomes a quiet but powerful form of strength. Another truth doctors share is that a strong body allows people to stay present in their lives. Chronic fatigue, pain, and discomfort pull attention inward. People become preoccupied with how they feel rather than what they want to experience. When nourishment reduces these distractions, people can fully engage with their families, their work, and their passions. Doctors see that health is not just about longevity, but about presence. Doctors also talk about resilience as the ability to return to balance. No one eats perfectly. No one lives without stress. The body's ability to recalibrate depends on how well it is supported overall. Nourishing foods create a baseline of health that allows occasional disruptions without lasting damage. Doctors encourage people to focus on returning to supportive habits rather than punishing themselves for deviations. This approach builds long-term resilience. Doctors frequently observe that people who nourish their bodies well develop a deeper respect for themselves. This respect influences other areas of life, including boundaries, relationships, and self-care. When people value their health, they are more likely to protect their time, manage stress, and seek help when needed. Strength becomes integrated into how they live, not just what they eat. Another insight doctors share is that nourishment supports adaptability during transitions. Whether it's aging, career changes, parenthood, or recovery from illness, transitions place extra demands on the body. Doctors see that people with strong nutritional foundations navigate these changes more smoothly. Their energy remains steadier, their moods more balanced, and their recovery more efficient. Doctors also emphasize that a strong body supports hope. When people feel physically capable, they are more optimistic about the future. They believe they can improve, adapt, and grow. This optimism is not naive. It is grounded in the experience of a body that responds positively to care. Doctors recognize hope as a critical component of healing and long-term well-being. Doctors often remind patients that health is not something that suddenly disappears or appears. It is shaped gradually through daily choices. Foods doctors recommend for a strong body are tools for shaping that future intentionally. They are not rules to follow blindly, but supports to lean on consistently. Each nourishing meal is a vote for resilience. Doctors also highlight that strength allows people to give more to others. When the body is supported, people have more patience, empathy, and energy for relationships. Caregiving, leadership, and service all require physical and emotional reserves. Doctors see that health enables contribution, which in turn supports emotional fulfillment. Doctors encourage people to view nourishment as a lifelong practice rather than a phase. Needs change over time, but the principle remains the same. The body thrives when it is supported. When people accept this, they stop searching for shortcuts and start building foundations. Strength becomes reliable. Doctors also acknowledge that the modern world often disconnects people from their bodies. Busy schedules and constant stimulation make it easy to ignore signals. Nourishing food helps re-establish that connection. People begin to notice how they feel, what they need, and when to rest. This awareness protects against burnout and chronic illness. This journey through foods doctors recommend for a strong body comes to a natural close. The message becomes clear. Strength is not something reserved for a few disciplined individuals. It is available to anyone willing to support their body consistently. It is built quietly, meal by meal, day by day, through choices that align with how the body is designed to function. A strong body does not mean a perfect body. It means a body that can carry you through life with stability, clarity, and confidence. It means waking up with energy, moving with ease, thinking clearly, and recovering when life inevitably knocks you off balance. Doctors see this kind of strength every day in people who choose nourishment over neglect. Food, when chosen wisely, becomes one of the most powerful forms of preventive medicine. It supports the heart, the brain, the muscles, the immune system, and the mind. It shapes not just how long you live, but how well you live. And the most important truth doctors want people to understand is this: you do not have to wait for a health scare to begin caring for your body. You can start now, with your next meal, with awareness, intention, and trust that your body will respond, because when you consistently give your body what it needs, it gives you something back that no shortcut ever can. Strength that lasts.